Well, we're here again for another Tech Talk with Paul and Al. That's Paul, I'm Al, and we're going to talk about a preamp today.
Very unusual preamp.
A very unusual preamp.
Highly sought after by the tube hybrid audio people.
So it's a Counterpoint SA3000
Yes.
preamplifier?
Part tube, part solid state, part hype, part illusion. This one, these were made in the 80s in California or Utah or someplace. They're made in America.
I bet it costs a lot of money.
It still costs a lot of money. We have, of all things, a tube rectifier for the B+, a tube big enough to power a power amplifier, don't ask me why, a 6 DJ8 double triode for each preamp, phono preamp channel, and one DJ8 for the line amp, tone controls, etc.
Does it have any? It has a few transistors running around.
It's got a few. We've got some ICs, and these are covering little transistors, mostly ICs, oddly enough.
Well, there's a big power supply regulator or something back there.
Well, there's rectifier and filters and regulated B+. Power transformers there. It's external.
To keep the hum away.
And other things. Pain to work on because to do anything to the circuit boards, you've got to take the whole board out of the case. This one came in with capacitors bloated, no big deal. Pulled the chassis, put in caps, put it back together, and it worked, but I had trouble with microphonic tubes and noisy tubes, and I kept ordering tubes off the internet. Finally found 3 that were reasonably quiet. It's working. It's going home in a little while, just like it is, because I'm tired of chasing noises and things.
Well, after pulling that board out from the bottom, you know.
Yeah, I've got a resistor here that I'm going to just put in from the top. It actually uses 4 half-watt resistors in parallel because of the wattage these tubes pull. This is a grounded grid configuration preamp with a grid to cathode coupling, so it's exotic. Now, the bad part of this preamp is that schematics are not to be had. Hi-Fi Engine doesn't have it. You follow the links on Google and you come up to a guy that is supposed to have them, and his website domain is for sale, which is not a good sign.
Is this company still in business?
No, no. And he wanted an arm and a leg for a manual for this thing. I can do most amps without a schematic.
This has a lot of drawing on
This one has a lot of weird stuff in it. But notice you've got trim pots all over the place. You've got input trims for the moving magnet and moving coil input. Moving coil preamps are kind of hard to come by. And this one being a tube amp should make it really rare. I'm guessing that with grounded grids you've got a very low impedance amplifier. Perfect for moving coil cartridges, which have almost no output and a low impedance. The funny thing is there's so much gain that with the cover off, the hum will drive you crazy. You have to kind of hold your hand over it to stop it.
Now, what are these right here?
Well, let me continue. Let me continue. You've got transistors under here that are part of the biasing circuit. So there's obviously a fixed or there's variable bias. Now you've got 3 little multi-turn pots for each channel. One of them affects the bias on these preamps. One for each channel. The other 2 multi-turn, you know what a multi-turn pot is?
10 turns probably.
Oh, at least. They may be for loading, they may be for feedback. You're supposed to have the manual and the instructions. If you ever replace a tube, you've got to do all these alignments because you're finding the sweet spot in that tube to get the flattest, most linear amplifier, or if you like a little distortion, get it on the edge. I don't have the schematic, don't have the instructions. I've got better things to do.
I see some switches too.
I got to comparing, yes, it's good quality construction. Now, I got in here and I'm trying to get this thing to match and figure out where this noise is coming from, and I'm A-Bing these 2 preamps. and I realized that I've got a difference in the voltage from the cathode to ground on one channel and the other. One's running 500 millivolts across the cathode, which of course is your input point, because it's plate coupled out, and the other one's running 0.25. And I'm looking for component variations, leaky capacitors. I find nothing. I get over here and I've got 0 on both ends of this capacitor. I got 0.4 and 0 on this one. So I get a hold of the little trim pot that is the bias adjust, and you can run that current up and down. One was turned all the way down. That was the 0.25. This one was turned up about 8 turns to 0.5. I set them both to be 0.25 and let it go at that. You obviously could spend the rest of your life tweaking this thing until your audiophile ears start to bleed to get the sound you want. I've got to move on. But I thought this thing was an amazing piece of work. Oh, what really kills me, I've got to plug it in. You can't just plug this thing in and use it. You have to, well, I had it unplugged. Plug it in or turn it on. And there actually is no off switch. Plug it in, and it does this for 5 or 10 minutes. Don't ask me why. It's warming up. It's got a little relay right here that will click eventually. And this will go green. And when it does, it'll work. But in the meantime, you sit and wait. It has a operate mute switch and a ready standby switch. If you put it in standby, it'll do this forever. You go to ready and you still wait several seconds, up to a minute, for it to stop doing that, to tell you that it's ready. So this is not for somebody who's in a hurry to listen to Led Zeppelin. You have to make an appointment with this thing to play your music.
I notice there's several LEDs.
Oh yes,
in the circuit.
And I'm sure these mean something. There's monitors in the power supply. Let me turn this off for a moment. And you've got bias indicators, 3 places. You've got red LED clipping indicators. Never push those to the limit. But yeah, all those LEDs I'm sure mean something. And if we had the book, we might know what they mean. But this thing on the market will bring $2,000 to $3,000 to somebody who's got more money than sense. I just fix them. I don't try to justify what people will pay for them. But oh, we've gone green, so it's now ready to operate. And theoretically, if I do that and that, and let me see. Oh, it's got these sealed, expensive pots that you can't clean. They have little scratchy spots. I'm not even going there. And that's it. I haven't tried to tweak the pots to see if I can get it to clip or distort. I don't care. I've got it working this good. There's no power supply hum. Nothing is smoking. I'm basically happy. But what a piece of work. What a piece of work. And trying to get these tubes is just crazy. People want $100 for a matched pair of 6 DJ8s.
Really?
Yeah.
And what are these red things? Those aren't relays. What are they?
Those are power supply capacitors. They're
Okay.
like one mic at 250, and there's a power supply bus that feeds these 2 clusters of resistors, and these are literally off either end of that bus. So each plate has its bypass capacitor.
Some engineer got to do the desire of his heart design.
Yes.
On this.
Absolutely.
No expenses spared.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This thing is way over engineered. It's beautifully built.
There was no one in his life saying, you need to save some money.
No, it was do it just whatever
Make
you
it
want.
good, he
Make
says.
it good. Yeah, there's line offset outputs, which are basically gain, and who knows what else. But boy, what a piece of work. So if anybody's got a schematic on this or a copy of how you're supposed to adjust this bias thing when you change tubes, I'd love to see it.
Now, making a synopsis here, when you got it in, it wasn't working, and what'd you do to fix it?
It had bloated power supply capacitors. First thing you look for with anything you get these days is bloated power supply capacitors.
All right.
Because they're the first thing to go. The heat and time, they get hot and they bloat from the pressure. So it had hum in the sound because the power supply capacitors were bad. And I put these caps, all these caps, checked everything else. Checked all the non-electroletics, they're fine. Checked all the tubes. Of course, the tubes check good, but they're noisy. Testers do not check for noise. I could thump these and they'll ring like a bell. The one that was in this channel, one channel would fry until the tube got hot. Then it would quieten down. But that's old tubes. But boy, was this thing engineered. On the subject of bloated capacitors, I got a computer monitor in the other day, a nice 16-inch monitor. It was given to somebody, dead as a doornail. I popped the back off of it, and it's got bloated capacitors, and I'm about to go get capacitors. But, well, gee, this thing's kind of old. Let's flip the board over and look on the back, and the drivers for the backlight. There's 4 little surface mount devices. 2 of them are smoked. I said, never mind. This is going in the garbage. You know, bloated caps are one thing. Any other component that's burned, forget it.
Especially on something that isn't worth that much money.
Exactly. Now, this same customer had a little 12-inch flat panel monitor die. And of course, I took it in and put in an N-channel J-FIT in the power supply and replaced the main filter capacitor, which was open. It's running great. Some things you fix, some things I fix, some things even I won't fix.
Well, it's about money and will it, but actually make it.
Why throw it away until you've checked to see if it's an easy fix? This has been a fun job. I have learned so much about this. I've never seen a preamp with this many little trim pots in it. And I'd love to see the procedure to see just exactly what they want you to do. You know, adjust this pot for so many milliamps, so many volts at this point, or until the lights start to blink or glow, who knows. But yeah, it was way over-engineered. So this was too good to not show to somebody before I send it back to its owner.
Well, we'll put it on YouTube, and maybe somebody will learn something, or maybe somebody will have a schematic.
Somebody might, and if nothing else, when do you get to see a $3,000 preamp?
Yeah.
Not every day. And this one is quite interesting. I mean, I wouldn't put up with this. I love tube equipment.
But what kind of amp would you have to connect this to be worthwhile? A Macintosh? Did this company make amps?
They made power amps, yes, and they were also hybrid. This particular preamp, the guy that's got it has a Fisher power amp, which you've seen, and that big Scott power amp, which you've seen in the previous video. And he's using it with them and a pair of Altec studio monitors, which have big horns in them, and if there's a little bit of hiss, you're going to hear it. This preamp, personally, I wouldn't put on a good power amp because it's just going to accentuate its flaws. You know, this has a sound that some people apparently really love, but it just doesn't turn me on. But just the fact that it's got tubes in it and it makes you wait and it costs $3,000, I had better things to do.
Well, maybe if you had this and an old solid tube Macintosh amp and a couple Clips horns, the real Clips horn.
If I had a decent listening room and nothing else to do, I've got a pair of MC30 Max salted away and a C11 preamp. And that is my dream all-tube system. And I should live so long as get that stuff out of mothballs and set it up and listen to it.
Well, also, you've got a couple of old huge speakers made by, what is it?
Oh, I've got JBLs and Altecs.
But you've got those ones Seaberg speakers, too.
Oh, yeah. Those are not what you call high-quality speakers.
They have a nice sound.
They're loud. They're loud, yeah. I got a pair of Pioneers recently, 3-way with a multi-segment horn with a driver on it. that I'm tempted to take these Bit Venturas out and those Advents that need to be reconed and put these Pioneers in instead. I'm at the age where my ears are going, and I need all the treble I can get.
Because, you know, a youngster would be in here and a treble would be killing them, but for us, you could run the treble so high that all the bugs are dying in the room.
I know. Well, I'm not. I've been careful. I've never gone to a rock concert. I use earplugs when I'm in the wood shop, but still, you hit 60, and you start to roll off.
Yeah.
And these Advents, I thought the tweeters had gone out.
Uh-huh.
And I opened them up. Tweeters are good. They just don't have much tweet.
Uh-huh.
Well, this Pioneer is crossed over rather modestly. I'm used to the Seabergs that are crossed over for a disco or a bar. These are very tasteful, but the tweeters and the mid-range are quite clean and clear. I can hear them. So maybe time to upgrade to some speakers that have a little more treble. But that's another story, another
Well,
day.
they're saying actually if you eat the right minerals and you take the right vitamins, your hearing comes back a little bit.
Yeah, and there's Viagra for other things too. But yeah. Anyway, I thought this was fascinating, and I wish to God I had a schematic because I'd love to spend some time on the circuit in this thing.
Well, it's an amazing piece of work, I can tell you.
I've got a little business card stuck here if I can find it.
Somewhere an engineer got his wishes fulfilled.
An engineer in the 70s who, I did this little iffy schematic on it. It's not correct, but that's kind of what I got just by ohming everything out and tracing. I thought, boy, did somebody go for the walls on this one. Grounded grid amplifiers you don't see very often. Cathode to grid coupling, yes, you do see that sometimes. But that's an ultra low impedance, high gain amplifier, and I have yet to figure out where the equalization circuit is, which you need for magnetic cartridges.
Yeah.
It's in there somewhere, but look at all this extra circuitry and these ubiquitous op-amp, metal can op-amps. That's probably where the EQ is taking place.
Is that a connection point? That's a monitor. What is that?
There's an RCA jack here that says monitor, and it's got 2.5 volts, which I'm assuming is one of these cathodes. And it's audio. It's the output of this preamp, which you probably plug something in there when you're tweaking these trim pots to get that sweet spot. Because, you know, tubes are not linear. They've got a straight spot, they've got roll-off on both ends of their plate grid current curve. And no two tubes are alike. So I'm sure you could take this and dial in whatever tube you've got and find that spot.
Yeah. Well, it's an amazing piece of work. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
They didn't find any way to, you know, most times when you see something that's built, you could always tell that somebody in the ownership or somewhere down the chain was bugging the engineer to make it as cheap as possible.
Yeah. Oh, no,
and they found all these shortcuts, like RCAs. They had amazing ways of cutting stuff down to the minimum.
Really?
Barely worked.
I mean, even solid state regulated B+. I'll bet it's got regulated DC for the filaments. Well, I know it does. There was a link on the internet. Somebody had one of these that they had smoked the regulator. It's like, oh my God, can somebody help me? And nobody goes, no. Yeah, it's been a fun job.
Well, getting those transistors is hard to do now.
Yeah, you could probably find something that would work.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go there. Not without more information on this.
Well, you know, they'd last forever if you didn't do something to them.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
But it kills me, this huge rectifier, and you're probably using, what, 30 mils of current?
They want you to be able to pull it.
Yeah, that's just nuts. Just nuts. But anyway.
It's amazing, Paul. Well, thank you for showing us. What brand is this again?
It's a Counterpoint.
A Counterpoint.
Yeah.
Okay.
A Counterpoint SA3000. Let's do a closing shot. We'll put the lid back on it. There you go.
It's an amazing thing, and it's rack mountable too.
It's rack mountable, and it weighs a ton. Yeah. Oh, it's built. It is built.
Somebody might have used this in a TV or radio station. You never know. Sometime.
No, people in broadcasting have more sense than that. This is for somebody's Highland Park home with a BMW or two in the driveway and a Mercedes, and one of those $3,000 turntables and ears that they have insured for $1 million because their hearing is so good. I don't know. I'm going to get in trouble, but audiophiles kind of bug me. Just enjoy the music, folks. Don't pick it apart.
Yeah, but it's an amazing thing.
I guess.
Well, I appreciate it, Paul. That's another Tech Talk.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one, too.
Okay.